Hi, everyone. My name is Cathy Pearl, and I'm Head of Conversation Design Outreach at Google. I'm here with my colleague Kiran to talk to you today about digital assistants and how they can best be used for people who need it the most. Funny story, although Kiran and I both work at Google, the first time I met him was at last year's South by Southwest when I came to see his talk. And we thought it'd be really fun to do a talk together at this year's South by Southwest. And I'm sorry we can't be there in person, but we're happy to still have the opportunity to talk to you over video. Kiran?
Thanks, Kathy. That was a great introduction. Hi, I'm Kiran. I lead the accessibility program for Search and Assistant at Google. And again, it's great to be presenting and talking to you virtually. And I'm going to be concentrating a little bit more on how digital assistants and voice technologies help people with disabilities in particular, but also explain how some of these technologies and features benefit everyone else as well. I'm going to start with a quick reminder of Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. This resonates well even after such a long time because access to information and technology can have a profound impact on lives of people with disabilities. I have been blind since birth, and I use technology pretty much in every part of my life at this point. I use it to be productive, to do my job, to get information about my environment. Um, I use it for accomplishing tasks. And the the voice-based technology and digital assistants have actually made this even more exciting and useful for people with disabilities. Um, I'm going to quickly talk about what accessibility means in this context and what I'm going to talk about as part of this presentation. I'm actually going to make one of the Google Assistant's voices read out the definition of accessibility as it appears on Wikipedia.
Accessibility, abbreviation, or 11Y, refers to the design of products, devices, services, or environments for people with disabilities.
While this definition is sort of narrowly scoped to disability, what we've found, and this is especially true for technology that's based on voice and digital assistants, is that features or efforts that we make to support user groups with disabilities actually benefit everyone. And it also works vice versa. Features that were primarily designed for people or for mainstream market actually benefit users with disabilities as well. According to the World Health Organization's World Report on Disability, which actually came out quite a while ago, I believe it's 2011, there are over 1 billion people with disabilities around the world, and I'm sure this has gone up recently. That's a large number, and it doesn't even take into account people who may have situational or temporary disabilities. For example, someone had a fall and they're temporarily um, um, disabled because their arm is in a cast or something like that, touch wood. Um, or you might be walking on a street on a really sunny day and you are struggling to look at your phone's screen because it's too bright outside. Or you might be driving and you really need to concentrate on the road and not look at your phone for getting directions or reading your email or whatever tasks you need to accomplish. Now, numbers around disability are actually also quite interesting because turns out that people who have color blindness outnumber native English speakers around the world, and that's quite staggering. The amount of color that we use in our life is a lot, and a lot of people might actually struggle with colors if we don't make sure that we use the right set of colors. Similarly, there are more people with vision impairments than Portuguese speaking population, and that's quite staggering, honestly. Now, talking a little bit more about voice technology and digital assistants, last year there was some research done around what the general population is using smart speakers for. And these are things you would normally expect, things like asking smart speakers for answers to questions, which the Google Assistant is quite good at, to be honest, or listening to music, or asking for the weather, or alarms and timers. Now, these would be generic enough use cases that they would apply to people with disabilities as well. But we have heard a lot from users with disabilities, and they tell us that things that are nice to have for a lot of people actually make them a lot more independent. For example, being able to control your smart home devices using voice. Now, this is a great feature to have for a lot of us, but for people who are disabled, it actually can make them much more independent. Blind people have always struggled with setting temperature on the thermostat. Now, all I can say is, hey, Google, set my living room to 72 degrees. I hope I haven't turned on any of your Google Assistant speakers by that command. Sorry if I did. Or if you are someone who uses a wheelchair, you might actually find it easier to control your devices with voice rather than accessing them when they are not designed to be at the height that you need them. There are thousands of smart home devices out there anyway, anything from smart lights to kitchen appliances to door locks to doorbell cameras to a bunch of other things. And I use quite a few of them at home. One of the devices that I use, I don't do much cooking, but I do use my oven in the kitchen, and that's got a touchscreen with a capacitive touchscreen, and it's quite difficult to use that because I'm not sure what I'm touching. So I use my Google Assistant on my Google Home speaker to control the oven, which actually works really nicely. And then I also have something similar going on with my microwave, which most microwaves these days are either menu driven or have flush buttons that are flush to the unit, and it's much easier to say to the Google Assistant, "Hey Google, microwave for 10 seconds." And the interesting part in all of this is that using voice and digital assistants actually takes away the complexity in interacting with technology. To talk a little bit more about how smart home controls are making people with disabilities independent, here is Patrick in a video. Patrick is one of our colleagues, and he uses a wheelchair, and he's talking about some of the things that help him at his home.
Hello, my name is Patrick Clary, and I'm a product manager on the Google Accessibility Engineering team. Today I'd like to show you some features that use the Assistant to control smart home devices by voice. Being a wheelchair user, these make it very easy for me to control different things around my home. For example, I have a Nest Learning thermostat, which is a smart thermostat connected to my home Wi-Fi network. I can control it using the Nest app on my phone or using the Google Assistant. For instance, I can say, "Okay, Google, Set the entryway temperature to 75 degrees.
Sure, setting the entryway to 75 degrees.
In some homes, the thermostat might be installed high in the wall, which makes getting to it in a wheelchair difficult. Controlling the thermostat with the Google Assistant is much easier. For people with vision impairments or who are blind, using a thermostat can be especially difficult. Very few thermostats are accessible for these users. In this case, using the Google Assistant provides much needed accessibility. Smart lights are another category of devices that you can control using your Google Assistant. For example, I can say, "Okay, Google, turn on the living room lights."
Sure, turning 3 lights on.
We're using Philips Hue lights for this demo, but there are a wide range of lights that the Google Assistant supports. I also happen to have the Nest Hello video doorbell and a Nest Aware subscription. Using the Nest app, I can assign names to faces and it will recognize people as they approach. My Google Assistant on Google Home will tell me who's at my door.
Kiran is at the door.
That's my colleague Kiran. Since I have a smart door lock, I can unlock my front door using the Assistant as well. Okay, Google, unlock the front door.
Can I have your security code to unlock the front door?
2035.
Okay, unlocking the front door.
If your TV is Chromecast enabled, if someone unknown is at the door, you can ask the Google Assistant to show the video feed from your doorbell.
Someone's at the front door.
Okay, Google, who's at the door?
You got it, streaming the front door on living room TV.
Since the smart home devices are connected to the Google Assistant via my Google account, I can control them when I'm away from home using my phone. One other useful feature of the Google Assistant is routines. With routines, I can have my Google Assistant perform multiple actions with just a single command. For example, I can say, "Okay Google, good morning," and have it set the temperature to 72 degrees, turn on the coffee maker, turn up the lights, play me the news, and tell me about the weather. Routines can be customizable and can even be set for a fixed time. Hey Google, good morning.
Hi Patrick, it is 10:50 a.m. Right now in Mountain View, it's 57 and sunny. Today, it'll be sunny with a forecasted high of 70 and a low of 43. Have a wonderful day.
These are some of the ways that the Assistant can take away the stress of your daily tasks.
As you can see, it's really easy to operate some of these devices, and that's a theme that kind of constantly comes across with some of the features that we talk about in this presentation, and also when you start using voice technology or digital assistants. Just really takes away the complexity in interacting with technology, and that's really great for users and makes technology much more enjoyable to use than a hassle. Keeping in that theme of simplifying things or removing complexity, there's a new feature in the Google Assistant that has launched recently in March. It allows you to read web pages or news articles on a smartphone running Android with voice. So if you're on a web page or a news article, you can just say, "Hey Google, read this," or "Hey Google, read it." And the assistant will actually go take a look at that web page and read it out for you with a natural sounding voice. You can change the voice if you like. You can speed up or slow down the reading. And we support, I believe, 42 languages. The interesting part is that if the web page or the article is not in your native language, you could actually ask Google to translate it and read that article in your native language. Again, it's really simple to use. It's technology that benefits everyone. Oh, there's also word scrolling and word highlighting and auto scrolling, which actually makes it easier for people to read. And this helps people with vision impairments and reading difficulties, but also generally anyone who struggles to read long long passages of text. A quick short demo on how this feature works.
Hey Google, read it.
Okay.
Today, we're announcing Read It, a new experience on Android that allows people to listen to web articles with the help of Google Assistant. It'll be available on Android phones later this year on versions 5 and above.
It's as simple as that. In fact, actually, the feature has already launched. If you have an Android smartphone device, you could actually try this today. Stepping away from using voice as input, I also wanted to call out a new app that has just recently launched called Action Blocks. Now, Action Blocks is primarily targeted at users with cognitive impairments. What the app allows you to do is assign an icon or a picture or a tile for a set of actions that will be performed by the Google Assistant on Android devices, so that with a single tap, you can actually perform multiple actions, such as calling mom or doing other things. And again, takes the complexity away from interacting with technology, so that people with cognitive impairments are able to accomplish their tasks without too much overhead or too much stress. As I said, Action Blocks is now available for Android. You can check out g.co/Action Blocks if you're interested in trying it out. And before I hand over to Cathy, I also wanted to highlight that we've produced a video series that talks about how the Google Assistant is helpful for people with disabilities. That's available on YouTube on the Google channel, and the playlist link is goo.gle/A11Y-assistant. That's goo.gle/A11Y-assistant. Over to you, Cathy.
Thanks, Kiran. I want to talk a bit more about other products that are making good strides in accessibility, as well as some best practices for doing inclusive design for voice products. Speech recognition technology has come a long way in the last few decades. It works really well for a lot of people, but not for everybody. What if you have ALS and your speech has deteriorated over time? Or perhaps you've had a stroke, and now it's really hard for computers to understand you. Last year, Google announced Project Euphonia, which seeks to teach the Google Assistant to understand people with some of these other speech patterns. Because really, someone, say, who has ALS might also be losing the ability to do some things independently. And voice technology is a great way for them to have more independence. And so we want it to be able to work for all sorts of speech. Part of Project Euphonia is Project Understood, which is specifically about helping the Google Assistant understand people with Down syndrome. Now, if you are someone who has ALS or has had a stroke or has Down syndrome, and you'd like to contribute some of your voice to help us improve these speech models, you can go to g.co/euphonia. That's g.co/EUPHONIA and help us make speech work for everybody. Another thing we announced last year is a free app on Android called Live Transcribe, which essentially does what you might expect. As you're speaking, it transcribes those words onto your phone or tablet. It's a really great tool for someone who is deaf or hard of hearing. And I really like to see stories of how people use this technology out in the wild. And I came across a quote from a woman who is a youth boxing coach. And she says, "In my case, Live Transcribe helps me listen to the kids in a noisy environment. It also detects ambient noises, which give me important situational context. Success in boxing is measured by one's ability to give and receive punches, and technology like this helps me truly engage in the ring so I can help these kids roll with the punches and rise to the top inside and outside of the gym. I highlighted the part about detecting ambient noises because if you think about how we communicate, there's so much more going on than just the individual words that are coming out of our mouths. The noises that are happening around us also set the situation. And Live Transcribe, if it identifies certain noises in the environment, like music playing or someone laughing or birds, it will display that on the screen so the person using it has that knowledge. The other day I was using it and I was singing happy birthday at a family gathering and it said, singing happy birthday right on the app. This Live Transcribe is personal to me as well because my aunt is deaf. She was born deaf, and during the time I've known her, we've communicated with her lip reading. She's a wonderful lip reader. But unfortunately, over the last 5 to 10 years, her vision has rapidly deteriorated. And we've been using, a whiteboard or my laptop to try and communicate, but it was frustrating for her. It was kind of slow. And I also realized it cuts off, again, some of that important part of our communication, which is normally she's still looking at my face, which shows a lot of the emotional context around what I'm saying. So now I use Live Transcribe and I hold up a tablet under my chin. So she can be looking at my face, seeing what's there, understanding some of what I'm saying, and then she can glance down if she misses it and check it out on the tablet. We also announced live caption. YouTube for years has been providing auto captions. You can upload your YouTube video, automatically have the captions displayed, which is great. But what if your video is not on YouTube? So live caption will do this for any video, whether it's a video sitting on your phone, a video you're watching somewhere else on your phone. So you can always get those captions no matter what. Now it does this locally on your device. So if it's a family video or something, you don't have to worry about it having to go to the cloud to process and add the captions. But it's great, again, for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but also maybe you're in a noisy environment, you don't have your headphones, you still want to know what's happening, you can use this feature. Another aspect of inclusive design is about access to technology. So I think sometimes, especially those of us who work in Silicon Valley, are sometimes in a bit of a bubble. We think, oh, most people, everyone has a smartphone, everyone has access to the internet, but clearly that is not true, whether it's the United States or elsewhere. And we are thinking about what are other ways that we can give people access to the internet who may not have the latest and greatest gadget. We launched a pilot in India, the Vodafone Idea line, and it allows anyone with a phone, so even a 2G feature phone, to call the Google Assistant. And that way they can get access to things like news, directions, answers to homework questions. So I want to show you a video of what that is like.
जब लोग सुबह जागते हैं तो मैं ड्यूटी से वापस आता हूँ। वैसे तो मेरा खेतीबाड़ी का काम है। करीब 8 साल से मैं गाइड की नौकरी करता हूँ ताकि बच्चे पढ़ लिख जाएं। हम शहर से काफ़ी दूर रहते हैं और हमें ये दूरी काफ़ी महसूस होती है। बेटा बताता है कि इंटरनेट पे बहुत जानकारियाँ हैं, पर यहाँ इंटरनेट आता नहीं, आता भी है तो बहुत स्लो आता है।
जब भी मुझे कोई तुरंत इन्फॉर्मेशन पानी होती है तो मुझे दूर साइबर कैफ़े जाना पड़ता है या फिर फ्रेंड को कॉल कर पूछना पड़ता है। जब मैंने पहली बार फ़ोन लाइन ट्राई किया तो मुझे विश्वास नहीं हुआ, पर अब ये मेरे क्वेश्चन का आंसर तुरंत दे देता है, वो भी एक फ्रेंड की तरह मेरे 2G फ़ोन में।
वोडाफोन आइडिया फ़ोन लाइन पर गूगल असिस्टेंट में आपका स्वागत है। तो आप क्या पूछना चाहेंगे?
इंसान का बायोलॉजिकल नेम क्या है?
होमो सेपियन।
पास में कोई मेडिकल स्टोर जो संडे को खुला हो?
अनुराग मेडिकल स्टोर अभी खुला है और रात के 10 बजे बंद होता है।
हुसैन को बचपन से पढ़ने का बहुत शौक है। आज भी कभी हमें ज़रूरत पड़ती है तो वही हमारा हेल्पलाइन है और वो अब हमें भी बताने लगा है।
लीजिए आप ट्राई कीजिए।
लखनऊ पटना ट्रेन टाइम?
लखनऊ से पटना तक ट्रेन 12,370 है जो सुबह 8:15 बजे निकलती है।
तो ये नंबर मेरे उसमें सेव कर लीजिए।
अब पापा कहीं भी जाएं, उनका असिस्टेंट हमेशा उनके साथ रहता है।
So again, it's important not to just be thinking about designing the latest and greatest wonderful gadget or best app, but also be thinking about who are the people who are not able to access this technology you're building, and what are some more creative ways we can find to help them. Let's talk a little bit about some general best practices. So if you out there are building your own voice experiences, what are some of the things you should keep in mind? This one isn't specific to voice design, but it's anytime you want to design, you want to make sure you've got the right people in the room from the start. So you may have a terrific idea to help people with a particular problem, but it's really important to bring those people into the room and say, is this actually a problem for you? Because otherwise you might find you're months down a path of building this prototype, and then you bring it to the demographic that you have in mind, and they say, well, actually, that's not really a problem for me because I have these other workarounds, but this other thing is really important. So again, bring the people into the room as early as possible. I am not saying this is easy. This is something that takes a lot of effort, a lot of planning, a lot of work, but it pays off and will ultimately save you time and money, and you'll build the right thing for the right people. It's really important to be thinking about when you have a lot of audio content, making sure that the speed is adjustable. Some people who are visually impaired will speed up content, like if they're listening to a book or listening to their email, to an unimaginable speed, speeds that someone like me, it's beyond me. But a lot of people have trained themselves to listen to audio very, very quickly. And if you're going to have any kind of long form content, you've absolutely got to have ways for people to adjust the speed of that content. Even if you're designing just for everybody, it's important to think about how much information you're giving to someone at any given time. If you're having a conversation with somebody, we have this thing called breath units. So your lungs can only hold so much air, and it actually naturally limits how much information you can say before you have to take a pause. And our brains have developed to kind of handle that kind of flow of information. So if you're having kind of an interactive back and forth with somebody, you don't want to push so much information because, of course, the text-to-speech, the synthesized voice, it doesn't have to pause for a breath. But you want to read out loud what your prompts are saying so that you can take that, quote, natural pause in your TTS to not overwhelm somebody with too much information. Maybe let them have a turn in the conversation. I also want to talk about a new type of device called a smart display. Some of you may have seen these in this picture in a kitchen. It's sitting on the counter. It looks a little bit like a tablet on a stand, but it's different than a tablet. It's different than a mobile phone. It does have a screen. And we call this kind of device voice forward. So something like a smart speaker, that's voice only. But a smart display we call voice forward because it has a display. You can tap it, you can swipe it. But as far as best practices for design go, you want to make sure that everything you can do on that smart display is doable by voice because of the situations in which it's used. It's often used, for example, in this photo, in the kitchen. And here's somebody who's cooking and his hands are busy or dirty, and he doesn't want to tap the screen. Also, it may be that you're in the room next to the kitchen, like the family room, and you want to ask a question, but you're not looking directly at the screen or you're a little too far to see it. Also, again, what if someone is visually impaired and has one of these devices? So although there are things you can do with tapping and swiping, you want to make sure you can do everything with voice only. So a great way to test this is after you build something, close your eyes. Can you still do everything? Another best practice we have is if you're designing for something like the Google Assistant, which is in an ecosystem that has many different surface types. You've got your smart speaker, which is voice only, your smart display, your mobile phone, auto, a watch, etc. We recommend you start with the voice only case first, because your experience has to live in some way across all these surfaces. It might be a little bit different on each surface, and that's okay, but it's still going to be there. So start with the voice only experience. Create those conversations first and make sure you've got them down. Sometimes they are surprisingly the most challenging or constrained. Once you've got those down, move to the smart display and think to yourself, okay, at this point, how can a visual enhance the conversation? Not replace it, not be extraneous. I think there are a lot more visual designers out there in the world than there are conversation designers. And of course, we go with the medium that we're comfortable with. So if you're used to designing for screens, you're given a screen, your first instinct is going to be, how can we make this screen beautiful? How can we animate it, add the right visuals? But in this case, do the voice only first and then add visuals as needed. I also want to talk a bit about something called the cooperative principle, which was, it was a man named Paul Grice, who's a linguistic philosopher, came up with in the 1970s as a way to explain how it is that we have successful conversations just among us humans. And he came up with these 4 maxims. And what it means is that when we are having a good conversation, we are following these maxims. And when we break one of these maxims, things get weird. And we use this today in conversation design because when you have a frustrating experience with a voice user interface, it's often because we've broken one of these maxims. One real life example, my son, who is 12, if I ask him, do you know what time it is? And he says, yes, he is breaking the maxim of relevance. Because of course, I really want to know what the time is, and he's taking my question literally, which is not a cooperative answer. As an example of a device that is doing a good job of following Grice's maxims, there's a device that you can hold up something like a can of soup and say, what is this? And it will look at it and try to tell you. And I love the prompt that somebody designed, which is, I think it's a can of soup. It doesn't say it's a can of soup because it's not 100% sure. But it also doesn't say, I am 80% confident this is a can of soup, because that's not the way humans talk. But here it's following the maximum of quality. It's being truthful. This is a shorthand way for a human to say, well, I think it's a can of soup, and let you know that it's not 100% sure. So following the Grice's maxims throughout your design process will make it a much higher quality experience and have fewer moments of frustration for your users. But really, I want you to think about inclusive design as not being for just like special subgroups. And I don't want you to have this idea that you have the accessibility checkbox or the inclusive design checkbox, and did we meet that? Inclusive design is really, when it comes down to it, it's about designing for all of us, because we all benefit from it at different points in our life. We all have impairments, even sometimes very temporarily in our lives. If you think about something like high contrast on a screen, which is recommended to help people who are visually impaired. But what about someone who's not visually impaired, who's just out and about, and they're looking at their mobile phone and the sun is shining on it and it's hard to read? High contrast helps everyone in that case. Or what about as you get older and you need reading glasses and somebody sends you a text and you don't have your reading glasses and now you don't know what it is. If you can use your voice just to say, hey, what's my text message? Again, a lot of people can take advantage of that. Also thinking about mobility issues. Sometimes my hands are full as I walk into the kitchen and I want to ask a question, and I can do so with my voice. Or maybe if you're a new parent and you're holding a baby a lot of the time, you still want to be able to do stuff. And you can just use your voice and not have to worry about putting the baby down, getting at your phone, doing all those kinds of things. Or what if you break your arm and your arm is in a sling for a few weeks? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to do a lot of things via voice? So again, when you're building conversational experiences, voice experiences, please don't be thinking about accessibility and inclusion as like, okay, that's a box I have to check. That's a certain group of people that are different than me, nothing to do with me. It's not like that. We want to be designing for everyone in mind. If you want to learn a little bit more about conversation design, Google has published a bunch of best practices at actions.google.com/design. You can also read my book, Designing Voice User Interfaces from O'Reilly. So go out and build wonderful, accessible, inclusive voice experiences. Kiran and I thank you.